অ্যান ফ্রাঙ্কের জীবিত এবং সৎ বোন এই সপ্তাহের শেষের দিকে ন্যাশভিলে থাকবেন। এটা কত বড় সুযোগ! নিউজ চ্যানেল ৫ এর ক্রিস্টেন স্কো ইহুদি সম্প্রদায়ের সদস্যদের সাথে বসেছিলেন যারা বলেন যে এই অনুষ্ঠানটি সকলের জন্য
For nearly 80 years, silence was her refuge. But now, at 95, Eva Schloss, Anne Frank's posthumous stepsister and a survivor of Auschwitz, has broken that silence. Behind the fame of the diary of Anne Frank lies another story, one of survival, guilt, and a truth too painful to speak. What secret did Eva keep hidden for a lifetime? And what did she find after liberation that still haunted her dreams? This is the story of the girl who lived next door, and the revelation she says she must share before I die. The girl who lived next door before the world knew Anne Frank through her diary. She was just a girl, laughing, riding her bike, dreaming of fame, and living just a few doors away was another girl, Eva Geiringer. In 1930s Amsterdam, they were neighbors, almost twins in age. Anne born in June 1929, Eva in May. They played on the same cobblestone square, whispered secrets, and shared the kind of friendship that only childhood allows. Anne was lively, Eva recalled years later, always talking, always dreaming. Neither could have imagined that Anne's dream of being remembered would come true through tragedy, and that Eva's fate would be survival. For a time, life on Amsterdam's Merwedeplein was peaceful. The Franks and Geiringers lived side by side, both families Jewish, both refugees from a world unraveling. Eva's father, Erich, had fled Vienna when Austria fell to Nazi control in 1938. He brought his family to the Netherlands, hoping, like Otto Frank, that they'd escaped the darkness. For a while, they did. The girls still played in the communal garden, spinning marbles and sharing stories about schoolyard crushes. But by 1940, the boots arrived, the German army invaded, and childhood ended overnight. The rules came fast. Jews could no longer work, study, visit parks, or ride bicycles. Playgrounds turned to prisons of memory. Still, Eva remembered one small act of defiance, waving to Anne across the courtyard, both girls smiling through the yellow stars of David stitched to their coats. "It was strange," she said quietly, "to see your friend branded, but we didn't yet understand what it meant." The Franks went into hiding in the secret annex. The Geiringers fled from one attic to another, trusting strangers, clinging to hope. For 2 years, their paths ran parallel. Anne writing her diary in the dark, Eva moving from refuge to refuge, always one knock away from capture. And that knock came on Eva's 15th birthday, captured on her birthday. May 11th, 1944, Eva woke to her mother's whisper. "Happy birthday." No cake, no candles, just silence. For 2 years, they'd lived like ghosts, moving house to house, hiding in basements and barns, praying to remain unseen. But that morning, the illusion shattered, a pounding on the door. German voices, "Aufmachen!" "Open up!" Eva's father froze. There was no time to run. Within moments, Gestapo officers stormed inside. "They dragged us out," Eva recalled. "One moment I was 15. The next, I was a prisoner." The betrayal came from a Dutch informant, a neighbor who had traded their lives for money. As they were shoved into a truck, Eva looked out the window and saw her city passing by. The canals, the bakeries, the park where she'd once played with Anne Frank. Now, those streets were filled with silence. Their first stop, Westerbork, a transit camp. There, the Geiringers were stripped of everything: names, possessions, dignity. "We told ourselves it was temporary," Eva said. "We didn't yet understand where the trains went." Rumors whispered through the barracks, smoke, chimneys, ashes that fell like snow. Soon, their names were called. Labor duty in Poland, the guards said, but the destination was Auschwitz. The train ride lasted 3 days, crammed into a cattle car with no food, no air, no hope. People fainted. Some prayed, some gave up. When the doors opened, Eva said, the air smelled of burning. In the distance, she saw flames, and with that smell, she understood. The rumors were true. Her 15th birthday, the day the Gestapo came, was the day her childhood ended. The number on her arm, when the train stopped, the floodlights came on. Dogs barked, guards shouted, and the gates of Auschwitz swallowed the Geiringers whole. Men to one side, women to the other. That was the last time Eva saw her father and brother. My father turned and waved once, she said. That picture never left me. Then came the moment that would mark her forever. The prisoners were ordered to strip, their hair shaved, their clothes taken, a needle pressed into her forearm, the blue ink burning into her skin. 77122. They didn't even look at your face, Eva said, only your number. From that day, she wasn't Eva. She was 77122. Inside the women's barracks, life was measured in minutes and rations. A single crust of bread was shared among 8. Soup was little more than dirty water. We ate grass, potato peels, anything, she said. Hunger became your shadow. Every morning, before dawn, they were counted, sometimes for hours, barefoot in the freezing mud. Fall once, and you were beaten. Fall twice, and you didn't get up. But even in hell, small miracles happened. A Polish nurse once slipped Eva a strip of cloth. "Wrap this around your arm," she whispered. "It will make you look stronger." Days later, during a selection, that scrap of cloth saved her life. Dr. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death, stood before her, choosing who would live and who would die with a flick of his wrist. Eva avoided his gaze. He pointed, "Right, life." "For now. I don't believe in miracles," she said. "But that day, I became one." At night, Eva would trace the tattoo on her arm and whisper her brother's name. It wasn't just a scar. It was a promise to remember. The angel of death selection day. The words alone sent terror through the camp. "Austretten!" the guards shouted. The women filed out, naked in the freezing air, mud clinging to their feet. And there he stood, Dr. Joseph Mengele, tall, immaculate, almost handsome, his white gloves spotless, his smile calm. To the prisoners, he was not a man. He was judgment incarnate. With a flick of his cane, he pointed left. Death. Right. Life. When Eva stepped forward, his eyes barely met hers. Right. But when her mother followed, "Left! Mama!" she screamed. Guards restrained her as Fritzi was led away. "Be strong," her mother whispered. "Live." That single word, live, became Eva's anchor. Hours later, through a clerical error or a twist of fate, Fritzi reappeared. Someone had pulled her name from the death list. Eva called it a miracle without explanation. In Auschwitz, even survival felt like guilt. "You didn't rejoice," she said. "You just whispered thank you to the dead for moving over and letting you stay." She saw Mengele again and again, selecting twins, mothers, and children for Hai's experiments. "He smiled as he took lives," Eva said. "That was the most terrifying thing, that he smiled." Once, she saw 2 little girls holding hands as they were led away. "They didn't cry," she said softly. "They just looked back in that moment." Eva understood the face of true evil, not rage, but indifference. And yet, through whispers, songs, and tiny acts of kindness, she and her mother, endured. Each day survived was an act of defiance. Each breath, a rebellion, until the guns fell silent. Liberation and the weight of silence. January 27th, 1945, the rumble of tanks echoed through the cold. The guards were gone. The gates stood open. "We didn't believe it," Eva said. "We thought it was another trick." When the first Soviet soldiers entered Auschwitz, no one cheered. The survivors were too weak to celebrate. "They gave us food," Eva said, "but our bodies couldn't take it. We were free, but we weren't alive yet." The nightmare didn't end with liberation. It only changed shape. The world outside was unrecognizable. Weeks later, Eva and her mother began the journey home. They crossed empty towns and broken railways, surrounded by other survivors, walking skeletons carrying ghosts. "The road home felt longer than the road to Auschwitz," she said. When they finally returned to Amsterdam, everything was gone. Their apartment looted. Their friends vanished. Jewish names erased from doorbells. At night, Eva woke to her own heartbeat, thinking it was footsteps. "The world expected gratitude," she said, "but I felt only guilt. Why me? Why not my father, my brother?" That guilt became her silence. Then, one man changed everything. Otto Frank, the only surviving member of the Frank family. He and Eva's mother, Fritzi, eventually married. Through him, Eva learned the story of Anne's diary, the words the world would never forget. But Eva had her own words buried deep, waiting to be found. The hidden letters, it was decades later. In London, Eva was married, with children, living a quiet life. But the past has a way of waiting. When her mother passed away, Eva began sorting through her belongings: photos, ration cards, scraps of memory. At the bottom of one box, wrapped in yellowed paper, she found a small bundle of letters tied with string. The handwriting stopped her breath. It was her brother's, Heinz Geringer, 15 years old when he died in the camps, had written them while in hiding. His letters were gentle, almost serene. "Don't worry for me," one said. "When I paint, I am free." In another, he wrote, "If you live, tell them we were more than victims. Tell them we dreamed." Eva realized then. Her brother hadn't written for their parents. He had written for her. Each page was a lifeline thrown across decades. Drawings of trees, of light, of hope. Things he would never see again. On his final sketch, two figures held hands under a rising sun. Below, he wrote, "Even night remembers dawn." For the first time in 40 years, Eva said, "I wept." Anne Frank had left her diary to the world. Now Eva had found her brother's voice, hidden in silence all along. "He was 15, she said. He knew what was coming, yet he wrote with light. The letters changed her mission. They weren't just about suffering. They were about life. Eva began to speak publicly, showing Heinz's art and words, reminding the world that the Holocaust was not only about death, it was about the people who lived. Artists, musicians, dreamers, souls who refused to vanish. Through those letters, she found her voice, and through her voice, her brother's light shone again. The secret she couldn't tell in her 90s. As her strength began to fade, Eva agreed to one last interview. She had shared nearly everything: the camps, the hunger, the guilt. But one story remained. "This," she said softly, "is the part I couldn't tell. Not until now." After liberation, she and her mother stayed near the camp, recovering in a makeshift hospital. One afternoon, Eva wandered into a storage building piled with suitcases and papers. the belongings of those who had died. She was searching for something to hold on to. Then she saw it, a bundle of notebooks bound with leather. The ink was faded, but one name was still visible on the cover: A. Frank. I froze, Eva said. It was her handwriting. I thought, it can't be, but maybe. Before she could turn the pages, a Soviet officer shouted, ordering her away. The notebooks were collected and sent off with other belongings. She never saw them again. It might not have been hers, she admitted, but for that one heartbeat, I believed Anne had left behind something the world hadn't yet found. Eva never told Otto Frank. He had already lost so much, she said. I couldn't give him another reason to wonder, but the moment haunted her. Whether the notebook belonged to Anne or not didn't matter. What mattered was what it represented. The voices buried beneath history. Anne's diary was not the only one, Eva said. There were hundreds, thousands. Every child had something to say. In her final confession, she revealed the truth she had carried all along. That remembrance itself was sacred, and silence was betrayal. The woman who remembered Eva. Schloss spent the rest of her life as a messenger between generations, telling not just Anne's story, but her own. She taught that memory is not weakness, and speaking truth is not bitterness. Survival, she said, is not just living. It is carrying forward the voices of those who cannot speak. Her secret wasn't about lost pages, it was about what remains after everything else is gone. The duty to remember. Because truth doesn't die. It waits for someone brave enough to tell it. Eva Schloss, the girl who lived next door. The survivor who broke her silence so the world would never forget. If this story moved you, like, comment, and share to honor her legacy. And stay tuned, because there are still untold truths waiting to be heard.